you're trying to get the backlog down. You're getting cars faster than you can hit them.
Sure.
And
Yeah, well, whenever a new senior car came out, whenever there was a new ambassador, of course, there was a new Statesman the same year. Did you test Ramblers up there too?
oh yeah,
Yeah. Did you ever own a Rambler? Because it seems like so
Oh,
far
yeah.
you've always had the ambassadors. Okay.
oh yes,
Yeah.
she, she had several, well, she had several Ramblers. In fact, I put one of those big, a 3 5/8 engine with dual carburetor in a Rambler,
How did you fit that?
with a shoehorn.
I was going to say,
Well,
shoehorn and butter.
there was no room for a fan.
Uh-huh.
It would go with no fan. So I used 2 electric motors
Yeah.
on the sides, heater fans. And,
Well, you son of a gun. That's just what they do nowadays.
oh sure.
Yeah. But I don't think anybody was doing that back then.
Well, there's one way to cool the engine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But that's exactly the way the most modern cars are done now. They put the radiator out someplace else. They put a couple of electric fans there and cool it that way. And that way you could fit a bigger engine under the
Yeah,
hood.
you could. The fans were on the side.
Yeah.
The engine was that far from
And you kept the radiator in the regular position then?
I think we moved it forward.
Okay.
That's not too hard to do.
Yeah. Now, what possessed you to put an ambassador engine in a Rambler?
Our one had a lot of muscle. And she drove the car.
Yeah. And was it fast?
Well, I didn't drive it that fast, but
Oh, okay.
I liked the car.
Okay, in case you can't hear her off camera, this is Mrs. Turtle, and she said she didn't drive it that fast. So, how would you tell? You tell. Did you drive it fast?
No,
No.
I really didn't drive it very fast. But what it did have was torque.
Oh, sure.
And it had, it was an outside mounted rear. And that, the thing was so well balanced, fore and aft, that you could open the throttle and leave most anybody standing at the stoplight.
Sure.
Because
In fact, I did used to drive it real fast. When there'd be hot kids rimming their engine, waiting for the light to turn green, they'd be right beside me. I'd step on it and walk away from it.
walk away from it.
This might be where that song "Beep Beep" came from.
Mm,
Could be, yeah.
could be.
Was that your favorite song back then?
Didn't even think about it.
Okay.
But that car lasted a long time.
Yeah. So you had a 48. Do you remember what year that Rambler was?
No, see. I want to say about 52 somewhere.
Yeah.
But I bought the body out of a junkyard.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I needed a narrower axle.
Yeah.
So it turned out that the English car that was built, I don't remember
The Nash Healy?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, had the right tread. So I finagled the parts for an axle, and got one built, and that was just the right width for that car.
And that was the blue baby.
Wow. Nash did a little racing back in the 50s. You should
Yes,
have
he
gotten
did.
involved in that. Yeah.
I was involved in that.
Oh, okay. How so?
Getting the racers what they wanted.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the racer. He was from Grants Pass, Oregon.
There was Johnny Mance.
No. He didn't get not that well known.
Okay.
He raced at he raced at Indy, not with
No, with Nash.
Nash, but
yeah.
no.
Well, you know, it's funny. There was a 50 or a 51 Rambler that was run at a race in Lanham, Maryland. The first time a Rambler was entered in a race, and it was Lanham, Maryland, is right outside of Washington D.C. and I'm not sure if it was a NASCAR race or if it was just a big local race, but first time out on a racetrack and it won. And they were just amazed because everybody kind of giggled when the car showed up on the field. And then 10 minutes later, the guy went home with the trophy. Or whatever time later, he went home with the trophy. But they didn't follow that up, I guess, enough. Mostly it was the Nash Healy, the race, and then the ambassador.
Yep.
So when you worked in Kenosha, you must have lived pretty close to Kenosha.
I lived in Kenosha,
Okay.
and then when I moved out to the proving ground to run the crash test, because we used to have to build them up in Kenosha, then haul them out to Burlington, test them at the track, and then then pick up the pieces and haul them back in for evaluation. Well, they moved the whole situation to the proving ground. In fact, built another building to house it. And so I got tired of driving the 25 miles every day back and forth. In fact, had a couple of close calls because the road was pretty well plugged about going home time. And so we just moved out to Burlington.
Oh, okay.
A mile and a half from the track.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a nice area.
Yeah.
He called me up and said, I saw a house, I think you might like. And I said, oh, I really don't have time to go today, I was supposed to go to Milwaukee and see somebody. But he said, well, it's got 3 fireplaces.
Wow.
And
3 fireplaces.
yeah, so I went to Milwaukee, but I cut the trip short and I came by and sure enough, we wanted it.
Ah. So, did any of the Nash executives, or the real top guys, ever come out to the test track or to the engineering department where you were? Because
Oh yes,
they were mostly headquartered in Detroit,
right.
which is it's a good drive from you.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, we well, mainly they'd come out for their own project, and then see what we were doing too.
Yeah. Now, let's talk again a little bit about the crash testing program. Explain again that spool, the spool out for moving the cars into the.
Oh, well, first you have to have a concrete wall
Yeah.
with a hole through it that you can run a cable through.
Cable. Yeah.
And the cars are guided down a piece of I-beam. And the first method was a car with a boom on it pulling the affected car into the wall. And then they went to trucks, and the truck would well, they did that the same way too for a while. Then we started towing it with another car, and the cable would run down through the wall, around 2 pulleys, and back.
Then you could control it
Yeah.
better.
And the towing car had a 5th wheel on it, and all this monkey motion to keep it right on 30 miles an hour.
And then finally, I guess the last variation was when you eliminated the towing car and just had it run directly from engines that were pulling the pullers.
That is true.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious, did they ever, it occurred to me driving up here with the crash testing, I don't think crash test dummies had been invented yet. Was there any attempt to see what would happen inside the passenger compartment?
Oh yes, crash test dummies were 15 grand at the time. And yes, they were. We even had a guy we called the dummy doctor. He repaired the dummies between crashes.
Oh, so you did have crash tests?
Oh yes.
Oh, okay. Now, were they ever belted in, seat belted in?
Always.
Always. Okay. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't know that Nash, I believe, was the first American car company with seat belts.
I don't know.
1950 or 51, they introduced a passenger side seat belt as an option. And although it's not explained in any of the literature, I've always assumed that that's because they figured somebody might be reclining on the seat and taking a nap, should be belted in. But you're saying they had crash testing for inside, what could you tell from a crash test dummy though?
Well, the crash test dummy had three batches of accelerometers, I think. One on the head, one torso,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget where the other one was. But at any rate, we had accelerometer readings
Okay.
all the time from these
Oh, that's
crash
fascinating.
test dummies.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And they also had a circle, bisected circle, on their heads and arms, and shoulders, and things like that, so that you could shoot, okay, and get crash test results.
With a camera
With
could
camera.
follow it, sure. Okay, and I
Some-
think they still use
Oh, yes.
some variation of that now.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
they sure do. Some were mounted on the car,
Mm-hmm.
and some were mounted on the ground, shooting through the windows.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I've learned an awful lot here today.
well,
You had a pretty good career with Nash then,
I thought so.
yeah?
Yes, I was never bored.
Yeah. And you stayed with the company
34 years.
34 years, from 1948 to, let's see, that would be about 1982?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, okay.
And they're, well, I guess we shot the pictures,
Mm-hmm.
but as I remember it, everything that was really interesting was over in a half second.
Sure.
That's,
Now, what would they do with the cars after they had been crash tested?
okay, there was a time when we tried to repair them and use them ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
like the engines
Yeah.
on a rear hit.
Mm-hmm.
And cost accounting came through and said, hey, you guys are spending too much time trying to do this. It's better if you just crash them and sell.
Yeah.
So from then on, we sold all the cars to a Milwaukee company that, okay, used them for scrap metal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And those were, were they further crushed or?
Yes.
I'm trying to think of what the
Yes,
interiors.
yes, they were.
Okay.
In fact, once every year, or at most 2 years, we'd get hold of the company, they'd make a bid, that was all with somebody else, but the highest bidder got this, and they'd send the crusher down
Mhm.
and drive it right into our scrapyard and crush them and haul them away.
Mhm. Oh, okay. How did you feel when Nash stopped building cars in '57, when they stopped building the Ambassadors in '57? The Rambler, of course, was, taken over, but '57 was the last year that they were producing Nashes.
Well, it kind of looked like the beginning to the end
Yeah,
to most of us.
yeah. Well, you were a Nash guy, but you were also a Rambler guy, because you had some Ramblers,
Oh yeah,
you know.
Ramblers were part of the fleet.
Yep.
And
Do you remember when the Rambler Ambassadors came out? When they made the longer Ramblers? They used a Rambler body with an extended front end, and they had the Ambassador V8, and that was...
I don't strictly remember that, I really don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was, I think it was a sad time in '57 when they stopped building the Nash car, but, well, that's what happened, and the company did survive and did very well with the Rambler, which started out as a Nash project, and let's face it, there wouldn't have been an American Motors without Nash, and I doubt if there would be a Jeep today if there wasn't Nash.
Right,
Yeah. So you stayed on with American Motors and worked all through the '60s and '70s.
right,
So I guess you didn't hate the company. You must have liked it pretty well to stay that long.
right.
Yeah, it was good to you?
Yeah, they were good to me.
Okay.
Well, you also stayed on for French outfit.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, oh, you were there even when Renault was there.
when Renault was there.
Uh-huh.
So that was, well, let's say it this way, kind of the old army game, hurry to wait,
Yeah,
because the French would say, now, these are the cars we want crashed first, and we'd get a list. And we could dress up more cars than we could crash if they were coming slowly enough, 3 a week or something like that.
yeah.
So, then, Detroit would say, oh no, we don't want to crash in that order, we want it. So we'd undress the car, dress the other one up, and then it'd come back. Oh no, we want the others, this car goes first.
Drive you crazy.
Yeah, in fact, the best thing you could do would be to don't do anything. Then,
Well, before we wrap up, do you have anything to say to your fellow Nash enthusiasts out there? We've got about 2,000 Nash car owners out there that are actually going to see this.
well, it was a good car. My dad drove them.
Mm-hmm. You drove them?
Yeah. And that special one we built, the little Rambler was the hottest engine they made.
Yeah.
That was a pretty hot automobile on the road, mainly torque.
Yeah.
Believe it.
Well, we'll have to have you folks come up sometime to a Nash Club get-together. I know we're having one this June in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and there's one big one somewhere in the country every year, and some local ones. I think you'd really get a big kick out of it to see 100 or 200 Nash automobiles out there, all restored to perfection and driven by people who really love and really appreciate the kind of work that you did.